And today we're going to be having a tutorial on a topic called numbers in words, billions. And this has been a topic that children are finding very hard to actually understand. Now follow me while I drive you into this. I'm taking you into table systems of numbers. Now, in the table systems of number, we have the 100, we have the 1,000, we have the million, we have the billion, we have the trillion, we have the quadrillion, we have the quintillion, we have the sextillion, we have the septillion, we have the octillion, we have the nonillion, we have the decillion. Okay, these are the table systems of number, and I call these houses of numbers. Now I really want to call it houses of numbers because I think it's an easiest way for a child to grab. We should look at all this as houses of numbers or families of numbers. Now let's say all these houses have just 3 members in each houses, and each of these houses contains 100, tens, and units. These are the members, because you want to tell a child that these are houses of the numbers, and in these houses we have 3 members, or these are families of the numbers, and each of the family have 3 members, maybe father, mother, and children. Okay, so each of them has 3 members, 100, tens, and units, 100, tens, and units, 100, tens, and units, 100. All of these houses have 100 tens. Now we're going to take these numbers like houses. We call them houses, okay, or call them family. We have the 100 house, we have the 1,000 house, we call the million house. Now I really want to call these houses so that children can actually comprehend. Now when children are really attached to something they're used to, I think they're quick to remember it. So we call these houses, and we can say that each of these houses have just 3 members in it, which is 100, tens, and units, father, mother, and children. Now let us drive in. How can we use these systems of numbers, which I call houses, to call numbers in words? Now let me take you to the next part. Follow me. Move. Now look at this number. 1, 7, 2, 5. Now what do we have to do? How do we call these numbers in words? Now look at this. Now this one is a simplified way to do this. Now remember I told you about table systems of number, where we have the 100. After the 100 we have the 1,000. After the 1,000 we have the million. After the million we have the billion. After the billion we have the trillion. After the trillion we have the quadrillion. After the quadrillion we have the quintillion, sextillion, septillion, octillion, nonillion, up to decillion, according to the houses we have. What you have to do, remember, in each of those houses we have 3 members, 3 good members, 3 good members. Now we are going to group these houses step by step. The first house was 100, second house was 1,000, and each house contains 3 good members. So I will start from here, start mapping out my houses. Now giving them, the first house is 100, so I want to cut out my 100 house, or I want to group out my 100 house. I give the 100 house 3 members. 1, 2, 3 belongs to the 100 house. And the next 3 belongs to the 1,000 house, but fortunately this number is not up to 3, so just give it to the 1,000 house. Whether it's up to 3, it's not up to 3, give it to the 1,000 house. But notice, each house has a maximum of 3 members only. You start grouping it this way, and you start calling it this way. You group it this way, you call it this way. Now the first house you see, while calling it from our left to right, we see 1,000 house. And what is in the 1,000 house? We look inside. Wow, I found number 1. So what I'm going to do is to say 1 in the house. Then I call the family name or the house name 1,000. When I'm done with that, this demarcation I have here, I use comma for it. I go to the next house, and what did I see in the house? 725. And how do they call 725? 725. Notice, you're not gonna say 725. You don't call the house more than one. So 100 have already been mentioned. You don't have to mention 100 again. So you just write 700 and 25. Is that pretty easy? Let me take you to the next step. How do we call this particular number in Word? Okay, it's looking kind of complex for a child of primary one, but using the same method and the same system I've given to you. Remember, each numbers are grouped in houses, which I've told you earlier. Now let's start grouping this number based on their houses. Now remember, we start grouping houses from here, and we start calling it from here. Okay, which houses contain 3 members, and our first house is the 100 house. Now let's give the 100 house what belongs to the 100 house. 1, 2, 3. First member, 100 house. 1, 2, 3. Wow. Next house, the 1000 house, and we don't have up to 3, so we're going to give the rest one to the what? Million house. Now let's start calling this number in Word. Now, looking from right to left, we look at the first house, the million. What do we see inside? I saw 2. Wow. So when I've written 2, then I'll mention the house last. So 2 million. Use comma to separate. Next house, I saw 573. I saw 573 in the next house. What does 573 mean? 573. Then when you call 573, call the name of the house. That shows this particular member belongs to this house. Okay, so this is 5. And we move to the last house, which is the 100 house. And when we look into it, we saw 219, 219. Remember, we don't call houses 2 times. So you've already mentioned 100, so you need to mention 100 at last. So we don't, what I mean is that you don't say 219,100. No, because we've been saying 2,573,000. You don't say 219,100 because we don't call the house more than once. So since 100 have been mentioned earlier, we just say 219, and that's all. Is it pretty easier? Okay, now let us see something more complex. Feel free to pause the video. And the first house is 100, 3 members each. Now I'm giving the 100 house, each member 1, 2, 3. That's my 100 house. The next house is my 1000 according to my table system of numbers. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a complete 1000 house. Now how do we call this? Look into the 1000 house. What do we find here? 250. 250. Wow. What does 250 mean? 250. So when you mention the family in the house or the members in the house, you call the name of the house showing this number belongs to this house. So 250,000. And we go to the next house, 194. Start grouping your houses. Remember, your first house is the 100 house, and each house has just 3 members. Now let's start grouping. We group from here. Count the first 3 members. First house, 1, 2, 3. The first house, 100. Second house is 1000. It has maximum of 3 numbers. 1, 2, 3. 1000 house. And the next one, 1, 2. Oh. It's up to 3, but the next is supposed to be million, so we'll give it a million. Okay, now how do we call this in Word? I look into the first house, we start pronouncing from here. Make sure you pronounce it before you write it in words. If you don't pronounce it well, then you can't write it in words. Okay, now look into the first house, we saw 70, 7 and 0, 7 and 0, 7 and 0, 70. Okay. So remember, I call the members of the house, then I call the name of the house showing where the member belongs to. So what I'm seeing here is 70 million. 70 million. To my next house, what I saw here is 0, 1, 0. 0, 1, 0 actually means 0, 1, 0. This is just 10. 10. Because 100 tens are units. So 0 is nothing. Nothing as 0, 100 and 10. Just 10. It's nothing for the 100. So this is 10. So you call this 70 million 10,000 295 295, which is called 295. So calling this in word is 70 million 10,000 295. So writing it in word will be 70 million. This boundary here is called the comma. Then we have 10,000, 10,000, and we have the 295. Feel free to post your comments. If you don't understand any question, I'll go through it one more for them. The concepts are easy, very easy. Your child can also do this. Just understand the concept, it's easy. Remember, our houses start from the 100. Each house has 3 members. So if you group in each houses, give them 3 members, except the members not. I will start grouping my house from my 100 to whatever the number permits. Okay? Now my first house is 100. Give it 3 members. 1. I'm giving 3 members. 1, 2, 3 for the 100 house. Second house is 1,000. 3 members. 1, 2, 3. 1,000 house. Third house is 1,000,000. 1, 2, 3. The million house. Next house is 1,000,000,000. 1, 2, 3. The billion house. Next house is 1,000,000,000,000. 1, 2, 3. The trillion house. And how do we call this? The same method we start calling from here. Look into the trillion house, we saw 125. 125. So this is 125. Call the house showing this number belongs to the house. 125 trillion, 693 billion, 965 billion, 830,000 and 19 and 19. Okay? The same concept, we want to call these in words. Now I'm grouping my first 3 members, 100, each of the houses, 100, 100, each of the houses, 3 members, okay? So 1, 2, 3, my first house is 100, the next house is 1,000 and it has 3 members. 1, 2, 3 for the 1,000 house, 1, 2, 3 for the million house, 1, 2, 3 for the billion house, 1, 2, 3 for the trillion house, 1, 2, 3 for the quadrillion house, 1, 2, 3 for the quintillion house, 1, 2, 3 is sextillion house, sextillion house, sextillion house. And let me do it again. Remember how we group the houses? Each house contains 3 members. My first house is 100 house. It is 3 members. 1, 2, 3. You group from right to left, right to left, and you call from left to right. So 1, 2, 3, 100 house. 1, 2, 3, 1,000 house. 1, 2, 3, my million house. 1, 2, 3, my billion house. 1, 2, 3, my trillion house. 1, 2, 3, my quadrillion house. 1, 2, 3, my quintillion house, and 1, 2, 3, my sextillion house. My quintillion house, and 1, 2, 3, my sextillion. So how do we call this in word? From here, 123 sextillion. Call the member, call the house loud, showing this number belongs to this house. 123 sextillion, 763 quintillion, 629 quadrillion, 543 trillion, 217 billion, 892,100,195. So you write that in words. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. See you later, and my next content will be writing these words in figure. Follow me when we get there in my next video.